All right, let's talk about how we care and feed for all the donkeys we have. Like I said, we got 3,000. They're all in different types of state, but they all receive the same care. Our little care and feeding guide here, I think we published over 5,000 of those things. They're kind of set up so you can mail them, put a little tape on them and mail them, so people call us and say, you know, my neighbor has a donkey and they won't do anything for it. Here are the address. Let's send them a book, see if we can get a conversation started. So, everybody gets annual vaccines. We do that in the spring. We don't keep individual shot records on 3,000 animals because I would have to hire a room full of data inputters to keep them accurate. So everybody gets a shot. We do it paddock by paddock, which means that every time we touch donkeys, we're touching a minimum of 100 at a time. So we have to be set up so if it's vaccine and warming time, we have to have enough staff on hand that we're going to get 100 donkeys through the lot that day. We deworm twice if the weather changes in spring and fall. And we typically will do samplings of each paddock before and after. Before to see what we're treating and after to make sure that we treated it. This is Richard. He was out, he and I did a lab on Friday. Greatest donkey farrier on the face of the earth. This man comes out and trims a minimum of 100 donkeys every month.
Wow.
For the last 3 or 4 months, he's been out twice, so that's 200. And when I say him, I mean him. His son comes out sometimes and trims. He might bring an assistant, but him personally will do 50 a day easy. The most he ever did in a day was 75, and we knocked off early. So, just amazing. It's hard to find anybody out our way that will trim donkeys, let alone, and this is without sedation. And again, the majority of these animals had never had their feet touched. Okay, we run about 2,000 donkeys on sanctuary. The guy that was trimming in the tilt, that's Zach. His job is to make sure they're all healthy. This particular lease is in Louisiana, and as you can see, they share the field with cattle. It's a pretty cool program. We went through a drought in 2011, an excessive drought, and everybody had to sell off the cattle because there was no water for them. Started raining again, and grass came back, and cows were so expensive, nobody wanted to get back in the cattle business. So this crazy guy was willing to pay them money to let his donkeys eat the grass. And so we started our sanctuary program. So we pay $15 per donkey per month, and that is, on average, it costs us about $40 a month to dry lot them, and that's with the labor and the whole thing. It's expensive to take care of, you know. Not if you all have donkeys, you have to go out and feed them twice, you gotta go. So multiply that by 1,000, that's labor intensive, equipment intensive. Out here, they're mobile, they're eating, they're handled. Zach goes out, checks on them, they get regular hoof trimming. We have a portable corral system we can take out, catch them all up, run them through the chute, trim them, vaccine. We do the same thing, we do fecals before and after twice a year to make sure, because, and it's very interesting what parasites we find in what parts of, most of them are in East Texas, but there are 3 now in Louisiana, and there's a half dozen in North Texas, and a couple out West Texas where we are. And so when you look at the parasites that we're dealing with, it's not always what you would think. You would think the greener, the more parasites we're going to have, the drier, not necessarily. It's interesting, to say the least. Here's another one. This one is, this looks like West Texas, probably around Odessa. And if you can, I don't know if you can really tell, but there's some good looking donkeys. You know, they're not overweight, but they're all full, shiny coats. When I came up with this crazy idea of putting them out on sanctuary, my donors freaked. They said, well, you rescue, now you're just going to turn them loose. No, they get the exact same level of care that the ones on the ranch do. It's just they have more freedom. And many of these are wild burros. You have to keep in mind, they're wild burros that don't want to be friendly. So they're out on these ranches, and typically, this group here is on a 500-acre parcel of a ranch. It's 2,500 acres. But we don't put them on any more than 500 because we can catch them on 500, look at them, turn them back loose, and rotate them. So we don't like any more than that, or it wears me and the dogs out. Okay, how do we keep track of all these things? If you were to go to my website and you had a donkey that was in need of rescue, you would fill this out. And then it would send it to me in the office on our internet data system. And so, for instance, this is our rescue case ledger that kind of updates. And so you can see, owners' finances, donkeys' health, abandoned stray, all the different government agency, deputies. And so, and then well, look at this one. I'm going to put Brenda Weddle on the spot. She's in Tennessee, has 24 donkeys. We get those calls a lot. We usually don't help. We try to place them locally. We try to help them find homes without us having to bring them in. Typically, to come into our ranch, it's going to be law enforcement, or it's going to be government, USDA, some of that nature, because we just can't do a lot of owner surrenders. We average about 750 donkeys intake every year. So we kind of have to be, So let's say the donkey comes in. We decided we were going to help. We bring the donkey in. We get all of its pertinent information. Typically, they don't. This is our first donkey my wife bought many years ago, Izzy, so I used her. So typically, they don't get a name. If they came out of, say, McClellan County, their name is McClellan County. So that way, we just know when we look. Not until they go into the adoption program do they actually get a name. But they do get a microchip. That way, we know who we're dealing with. Where they're, we scan them and everything, we transfer them. Whether it's a domestic donkey or wild burro, a lot of that is just for our statistics and my fundraising ability. The sex, the color, where we receive it from, birthdays, rescue case ID. So I can run this back on that previous screen and know exactly where that donkey came from. She's permanent, of course, because that's my wife's donkey. My wife would tell that somebody got rid of her. This is the bottom half of that same thing. And as you can see, we're on the care records tab. And so she came into back here in our active ranch. She was transferred to our Tehachapi ranch. She went to our Miles ranch in Texas, and finally in our Harriet ranch in Texas. Every donkey has that same level of record keeping. We know where it's been, where it's going. We have a training tab for the adoptables. It's an A through F. They usually start out with an A for friendly and an F on everything else, and then the girls work with them. We can keep track of their medical records here, anything, and that's to be used. What is a presenting problem? Did you call the vet? What did he diagnose? What did he treat? And then, and we started doing that mainly because of hoof abscesses. We have so many people on staff that can treat a hoof abscess. You see it, grab the donkey, treat it, you're done, right? Well, we were finding that we didn't know if the same donkeys were presenting the same problem in the same hoof over and over and over. So we started doing this so we could say, oh, okay, now we got an issue. This donkey's had his abscess for, 3 times in the last 6 months. We need to do something different. So that's what kind of prodded that, because, our vet keeps all the medical records, of course, for anything being treated. So that came in really handy so we could start diagnosing those things ourselves. Oh, this is medical record form. And everything's online. It's all, we can access it anywhere in the country from any of our locations. This was an abscess, of course. But that becomes all part of our permanent record. Now the other end of it, the adopters go online and they fill this out, send us pictures of their property, answer a bunch of questions. We'll talk about the adoption before we move on. We like people that want pets. We provide a pet quality donkey. Now, if they want to teach it to pack or ride or drive or anything, that's cool. But we don't do it. We're not trainers. We don't have time for that. We're gentlers. So we're looking for people that have a little bit of land. They don't want the hassle of a horse. Horses are a hassle. Right? You got to ride them. You got to buy tack. You got to do it. Well, donkeys. You just got to pet them. So that's the kind of people we look for as adopters. Okay. Already do the rest. Anybody that doesn't think animal rescue is about the money is not going to be an animal rescue very long. It is all about the money. And I'll give you an example. I know that sounds terrible. Oh, it's charity. Let's say I want to go to the shelter and get a dog. Right? I got to go to the shelter and I got to get out my wallet. I got to pay for the adoption fee. Then I got to go to Petco and I got to get some dog food, then a bowl, and maybe a toy. Right? I got to take it to the vet and get shots. Got all these things. Those are expensive. And that's just for one dog. Multiply that by 3,000 donkeys. And that is my responsibility. That's the ball that I have to keep rolling in order to fund this organization. So it's about the money. If I didn't have the money to take care of those 3,000 donkeys, I'm not doing my job. So the money is, I'm always hammering my staff. You can ask my staff who's present. It's all about the money. How much does it cost? What's the cost per donkey? Are we getting the most value? So money's a big deal. This came off of our 215 taxes, over $500,000 just in feed. And that's our hay. We feed 1,000-pound round bales, we feed square bales, that's grain, that whole thing. And that does not include the fodder that we grow. $250,000 in sanctuary fees, all those $15 a month rascals that are out there eating grass. So you're getting the picture about, it's all about the money, because these are big expenses. And then finally, and this is actually a reduction, because with Jack working so closely with Chris, our vet, he was able to bring it, probably saved us $20,000 in not having to take an animal to the vet, being able to receive the diagnosis and treatment over the phone from Chris and doing it himself. So it is very expensive to do what we do. That does not count all the insurances that I have to cover. And I have lots of insurances. It doesn't count the brand new pickup truck we just had to buy because my last one gave up the ghost last week. We operate 2 transport teams. Each can carry about 30 donkeys each. We can be anywhere in the country in 48 hours. We have 2 other trucks. We have all sorts of sizes of trailers. You probably all saw my big trailer over there. But that's typically what we pull. We are commercial drivers. We are licensed, but it's expensive. And that's my crew. I'm the good-looking one in the middle, if you couldn't tell. But we have about 10 full-time employees and a whole gaggle of part-time. Because of where we are, we don't get a lot of volunteers. Some Air Force guys come out once in a while, people doing community service, but people in West Texas don't care about donkeys.
Where in Texas are you exactly?
Do you know roughly where Abilene is?
I know Albany and Fort Worth.
All right, well, we're
Are you by
southwest
Alpine?
of there.
By Alpine?
We're north of Alpine, yes. Yeah, you have Interstate 10 goes across country, and right about Pecos, Texas, 20 starts. We're right between those two. That's why nobody's ever heard of us. There's no interstate. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, what was the thing that made you do this, or how'd you get started, or were you obsessed with donkeys as a young man?
Never had one until I was 30 some odd years old. She bought Izzy as a companion to a horse she had. We had a little ranch shed outside of Los Angeles, California. I was a contractor. We owned 2 businesses, and I spent a minimum of 4 hours a day on the freeway in traffic. At the time, it made perfect sense. Looking back on it, I was like, how stupid was I? Didn't like it, didn't have it. I never had a day at work I enjoyed. But when she got this donkey, just like when you get a new pickup truck, I don't know if y'all drive pickup trucks out here. But you get a new pickup truck, all of a sudden, everybody's got your same pickup. You notice it. Well, same with donkey. You get a donkey, never had one before, we started noticing donkeys. So she found one that had green snot hanging out its nose, and its chest was all tore up from lunging through the bars. So she bought it and paid somebody to bring it out to the house. And I sat out there every night talking to it. And pretty soon it was just as friendly as the next one, and she found 2 more to sell more. And if you reached
The whole
out to
thing
touch
is my
them-
fault.
So I was just
if you reached out to touch them, they'd shake so bad they'd fall down. So she bought those, paid for them, burned for the house. I sat out there and talked to them. We had 25 donkeys in the backyard. It's like, we need to do something. We got a problem. So we started the Peaceful Valley Donkey Rescue as a means to place them so that we keep title of all donkeys. Even if you adopt one of my donkeys, it still belongs to me. Because if you do something bad, I don't want to have to go to the judge. I have a signed contract that says that's my donkey, it's got my microchip, I'm coming to get it. But it's also a benefit to the adopters because if they get sick, they don't get stuck with a big vet bill. We'll step in. If they get transferred and have to move, if they're too old and they got to move to town, whatever it is, they just call Mark, take care of it. So there are donkeys.
And it's
to answer your question,
yeah, no, but it's totally just donations.
Yes, all private donations. In 2005, we sold our businesses and went full-time into this. So we've been doing it 11, coming up 12 years.
And all of our financials are on the website. Everything from salaries to what we pay in insurance to what we paid for the mortgage. It's all very transparent.
We are very transparent. Everything about me can be found online and my organization. Sir?
Are you noticing any trends, positive or negative, in the overall
population of donkeys, and are you aware or involved with any grand scheme management plans to?
That's the problem, there is no grand scheme. The Bureau of Land Management has their, and a lot of people hate them, a lot of people love them. I think that they overmanage. I think they're decimating the wild burrow herds on their land. National Park Service wants 0. U.S. Fish and Wildlife wants 0. But then you have state forestry, you have state agriculture. They all have donkeys on lands they manage. Then you have the private ranches. Then you have the Indian reservations. I know somebody was doing, wasn't somebody doing PCP on one of the Indian reservations?
They were talking about doing it on Navajo.
That's right. So there's really no, these symposiums are like the first time we're actually getting people in the same room having conversations. Everybody's kind of an island unto themselves, and that's the problem. There's no one thing.
Can I just ask a follow-up? Are you then foresee that we're going to be kind of fighting fires for a while without anybody really worrying about trying to figure out what's causing the fires and if it's growing or going to put itself out naturally? Or what do you foresee for the future in terms of your project and how, and anyone else in the same business around the country?
I'm a management guy. Okay, I like to see wild burrows, but I like to see wild burrows managed. Okay, that's, to me, because there is no predation to speak of in most of these regions. They're very hardy, they can live damn near anywhere. So they're going to continue to breed as long as there's something for them to eat. Right now, there's the Ricci Canyon burrows. If you Google Ricci Canyon burrows, you'll find out all about them. They're not being managed, they're getting hit on the highways now because of expansion of the suburbs coming their way. But there's a group there that doesn't want them touched, they don't want them managed. So that right there is one issue that when it finally blows over and somebody gets killed because they hit a donkey, that's going to be a huge project right there just in itself. And those are the Navajo Reservation. We were just through, I don't remember which one we were just through, we just did a job in Farmington. But all the reservations happen. When you drive through the donkeys, they're like, oh, there's like 2,000 of them over the hill there, you gotta go get those. So no, there's always gonna be an issue because until all the donkeys are properly managed, they're just gonna keep going. We're actually in the Caribbean now on a couple of islands because of the same thing. They don't have any value, so nobody wants to invest any money in them. The island of Nevis has 8,000 on 36 square miles.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's more donkeys than people on that island.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
it's crazy.
so there's, unless I were to go back to Texas and turn off the internet and the phone,
Yeah.
everywhere you look, there's an issue. There really is.
How many people, well, what's the grand total of how many people attended this symposium, out of curiosity?
Registered is about 75, but we allow students and faculty, and I think we have some active.
So we round it off to 100? Like, wouldn't that be 100 people that would already want to start an association and, you know, $50 a year, $100 a year, and start interchanging email and starting to make a force together?
You know you're not going to do residence for.
Do y'all know Dr. Davis?
Yes.
Yes.
The reason we're here is because 4 years ago he had a crazy idea of doing this. So I think we owe him a round of applause because that's what now we're talking about. 4 years ago we did the first one of these. This is number 4. I was out here in May speaking at a special donkey veterinary course that they were teaching here at Cornell. This has never happened in the history of this country where people are actually talking about donkeys first. Everything's always been and donkeys. And what that means is they wanted us to come to their seminar, but we're not talking about donkeys. So this is pretty exciting being a donkey. We're an all donkey rescue. I've got 1 old horse and 50 mules and all the rest are donkeys. That's all we do is donkeys. So this is a pretty exciting time to be. So, and I think the more we keep these things going, that's why I drove from Texas. That's why I'm involved, because I want to put as much support in these things as we can to keep the conversation going.
Yeah, and wildfire's hot.
Not Eric, he's young.
Yeah.
But I think it might be a good conversation point. He's the boss in a way. So.
I mean, I have this tiny little, and I rent a cabin to offset because it's just me and my husband, right? And I always ask the people, 90% of them are Americans, the rest are, I'm from Canada, obviously, and the rest are English. But I say, why did you come here? There's, 40,000 hotel rooms in Niagara Falls. Why did you pick us? And I would have to say, 7 years doing this now, 90% is the donkeys. So people, the average Joe loves donkeys. If they knew, and again, if we could get this out, and it's just like I said, while the fire's hot, and we have a group already starting, that what do we got to lose? And probably to save a donkey or two along the way, or unite when having people like yourself that, are so experienced that could make us coagulate to get somewhere, or at least try.
Right, and to some extent, the water that you're swimming against, again, is just what Mark mentioned about donkey basketball.
Well, I've been never we don't have that in Canada, do we?
No.
Okay.
Well, no, they don't have it in the UK either. Donkeys are very positive there. We're here in the United States, Bugs Bunny turned into a donkey when he made it feel stupid. Pinocchio turned into a donkey when he was overindulgent. Right?
It's
always
changing the
sidekick.
laws.
And of course, we're all cowboys, right? Everybody's gonna ride a horse, so that's why my job is to make them cool. So, man.
May I just suggest that everyone in this room go home, call your local newspaper, and ask them to come and interview you, or go into their office and interview you about your experience here. There's a big step, and then just keep growing in your community one little step at a time. Open your barns, invite people to come in, make it educational, not just like, oh, aren't they cute, or, yeah, there's so much you can do.
And even on a
Don't
small
be
level,
discouraged.
because
Exactly.
like you deal with so many donkeys, we adopt out on average 35 a year, which has been consistent, but that's, for us, in New England, I think that's a lot,
Yeah.
because considering where we are. So every little bit really does help. You've just got to do it in little baby steps and do what you can to make it.
And right in Shaq?
I have a national free online magazine to promote awareness about wild burros, wild horses, donkeys, mules. I would love to talk to you later about getting some more information. I don't have a lot of information.
1 o'clock
about
we'll be over the
donkeys.
pavilion doing our adoption event. We're gonna have our tent set up and our merchandise, y'all wanna come by.
My big thing is education and awareness, and a lot of people don't know what's going on, and I try.
Well, can I tell you a story
inform
about that
them.
very thing? I live in San Angelo, Texas, with a population of 100,000. I've been on the front page of the newspaper, I think 3 times. I've been on the local news, TV news, been on the online news, and nobody in that town knows there's a donkey rescue, let alone one our size, just up the street. And it's amazing, because we're out there, right? You go through town, and my picture's on the front page of the newspaper, so people just tune it out, because they don't care. It's automatic, just tune it out. And that's the problem we're facing. Yeah, all the way in back.
So you've got a pretty big budget of expenses.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm wondering now, it's not bake sales that are funding you.
ma'am.
So how do you hire professional fundraisers?
I write all the stories myself. It's all based on relationship fundraising. I've sat on a lot of couches and talked to a lot of people. How do I put it? One of the most successful fundraisers in the country, I had, he's Greek, and the island in Greece he came from had donkeys. And so when he spoke, and it was all universities and Girl Scouts, and there was one guy in the back that was a donkey rescue, so I got to have lunch with him. And he told me, what I need to do is I need to get all my donors in my hub. We need to have a relationship. So I do relationship. So I write personal letters. I write personal thank you. I stick in pictures of a donkey, and I write the donkey's name, and I do things like that. But it's all one donation at a time. And what did we have last year? $3 million. But we spend every year. Every year we go over budget on every line item because there's always some new problem, and every year I'm able to raise enough to support it. I've never not met my goals. Ma'am?
Yeah, here in the Northeast, we have a lot of zoning issues in various communities. And for example, I have residential, but I'm allowed to have thousands of horses. I only have 1 BLM and a pony, but I can't have 1 chicken. So there's a lot of screwy little things going on in various communities. And boy, I've been wanting to get a donkey, but I'm so fearful that a couple of rays down the road, someone down the street's gonna report me, and that'll be the end of that. I'm just wondering if anyone's had an experience, maybe after here, if you can help me figure out.
Yeah.
Doesn't fall well.
Next time.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're gonna be over there at 1. I'll be hanging out. Y'all wanna come, we can continue the conversation, take my business card, stay in touch with me. This is what I do for a living. I'm full-time doing nothing but donkeys. I'm either in the truck transporting them. This was 26 hours to get here from Texas. 2 weeks ago, I was in Seattle by way of Southern California. It was about a 5,000-mile trip. So I'm usually in the truck, bored. So if y'all want to call and talk about donkeys, text me, call me, email me. Let's keep the conversation going. One thing I got to say that has been huge since we started this is I got to know Dr. Davis. Dr. Davis does all sorts of outreach in impoverished nations, Mexico and Nicaragua and all these places. I never knew he was out there helping donkeys in rural settings. Now, you know, I count him as a friend. I don't think Canada's present with us, with the lady that's involved in Canadian donkey rescue.
No, the they're Canada,
Oh.
Canadian donkey.
I haven't met you two, I know Kim. But I now have friends across the border. So, and it's all because we started a conversation. So we just got to keep it going. So thank you all. I probably went over time. I appreciate it.